Thank you, Mr. Chair and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here today, and to your command teams as well. And General McKenzie, thank you so much for your commitment and your service during a very difficult time during that transition in the Middle East. We truly appreciate it. We're grateful. General McKenzie, 2 weeks before the final withdrawal from Afghanistan, the on-the-ground commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan at that time stated in what are now open source documents that the U.S. forces had targeted and killed over 100 Taliban members who were moving on the city of Kabul on August 14th. Is that correct?
Yeah, Senator, I believe that is correct.
Okay, so we know at that time the situation was very tenuous. The Taliban was on the move. And an official DOD after action reported had clarified that the president and other senior DOD officials' statements, some of which were under oath, and that both on-the-ground commanders and the intelligence community assessed that the government of Afghanistan's capacity to defend the country from being overrun by the Taliban was for 6 to 12 months following the U.S. withdrawal. And those statements were unequivocally false. Were the assessments of Rear Admiral Peter Vasily and General Scott Miller, who were the last two commanders of the U.S. forces in Afghanistan, and yourself, were they passed on to the Office of the Secretary of Defense? Because I think there was a different assessment that came from you and the on-the-ground commanders. Were those assessments passed on to the Office of Secretary of Defense? Were they passed on to the State Department? Were they passed on to the National Security Council?
Senator, I'm confident that my assessments, the assessments of General Miller, as well as subordinate commanders, which informed my assessment, all those were passed to the Secretary and, in fact, to the highest levels of government. And I was present at some of those meetings where those recommendations were discussed.
Were those assessments given to the president?
I believe that at the very highest level, everyone saw and knew these assessments.
Okay. Were you ever involved in a discussion with the president when dissension was voiced?
So, Senator, I won't be able to comment on any discussions I had with the president, but I can tell you this: my position, which I've expressed before in front of this committee, was that in the fall of 2020, it was probably a mistake to go below the level of 4,500, and in the spring of 2021, it was a mistake to go below the level of 2,500. If, in fact, we did so, we expected the government of Afghanistan to collapse. That reflected my opinion and also the opinion of General Miller. We had an opportunity to freely express that opinion, and I'm confident I was heard. And that is really all a military commander can ever hope to have the opportunity to do. Those decisions to stay or go and what force level you're going to put in Afghanistan are not inherently military decisions. Those are decisions made at the highest level of the United States. And so I appreciated the opportunity to be a part of that discussion.
Mm-hmm. No, and I appreciate your clarity as well, General McKenzie. Thank you so much. And as well, now that we are out of Afghanistan, we do see that China and Russia are becoming more active in Afghanistan, and they're seeking to capitalize on the void that has been left in that area. What are some of the tools and capabilities that will be required by the United States to really deter our adversaries that are in Afghanistan right now?
So I think primarily it's how you work with the government of Afghanistan, such as it is. We have not formally recognized the Taliban as the formal government, but there are levers that we can apply against that entity, economic levers, diplomatic levers. They seek diplomatic recognition, not principally from the United States, but also from other nations as well. And so there are things that we can, I believe, and it's not a military question really, there are things that we can do to shape their behavior. And I believe our diplomats are working very hard to that end right now. Very
good. Whole of government. And General Townsend, just very briefly, do we see a lot of Russian activity in Africa and the use of contractors, military contractors, other types of contractors? And what are those contractors? And give us your assessment of whether that makes our job more difficult in Africa.
Thanks, Senator. We do see a lot of Russian activity. It's almost all in the form of these private military contractors that you're referring to, namely the Wagner Group and some other smaller ones. They're a malign influence. They don't follow anybody's rules. They do what they want. They buttress dictators. They do gross violations of human rights. I think it's bad for Africa's security and prosperity in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, again, thanks so much for your service. We truly do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank